Live stream's on. Ready to go? Thank you, Taylor. So good morning everyone, and thank you for attending our Ordinary Council meeting today. And I declare the ordinary meeting of the 27th of September 2023 open at 9 a.m. I do advise members of the public that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with Council's standing orders. On behalf of the Whitsunday Regional Council, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet here today and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We do recognise their deep enduring connection to country, and we extend our gratitude and respect for their wisdom and culture. So welcome to our councillors, WRC staff, members of the public and the media. So let's start by moving on to our agenda and item number 1. So I have a leave absent request for Councillor Collins from the 28th of September 2023 to the 9th of October 2023. Moved by Councillor Brunker, and seconded by Councillor Clifford. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Yeah. Motion is carried 7-0.
I'll be still in touch though.
Okay. Yeah. So, and everyone else is here, so that's all good. Item number 2, our condolences. So on behalf of the Whitsunday Regional Council, we would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the deeply departed of the Whitsunday region and offer our sincere condolences to their families and loved ones. Do you have someone special?
No.
No, that's all right. Can we please upstand for a minute silence? Thank you, everyone. Please remain seated or be seated. Moving on to item number 3, our confirmation of our previous minutes. Thank you, Councillor Wright, for moving that. Seconded, Councillor Clifford. Do we have any comments or questions in regards to the minutes? Put that to the vote that we receive those minutes. All those in favour? Motion is carried 7-0. Item number 4, business arising. Does any councillors wish to raise any matters in business arising? No? Okay. Item number 5, the mayoral minute. So I just would like to acknowledge that this is our first monthly meeting in the new format. Of course, this is being live streamed and will be placed on the website for the public to view as well. And just as we don't have a conflict of interest, the format has changed slightly, councillors, so we may need a little bit of time to get through the new format or get used to it a little bit. So we'll just be a little bit patient as we learn as we go along. If we do have any conflicts of interest, just a reminder to declare those before the item, as it's not in the beginning anymore. Okay, so that's my mayoral minute. On to item number 6, our notices of motion. Councillor Collins, would you like to
Yeah, it was,
move?
I'll move it, yeah.
Yep, seconded, Gary, thank you.
The council authorised the Chief Executive Officer and relevant departments to look into the possibility of grant funding for the design and construction of a memorial in honour of the 4 Australian Defence Force personnel that lost their lives in the Australian Army helicopter accident off the coast of the Whitsunday during Talisman Sabre military exercises. On the background, on the 28th of July this year, there was an Australian Army helicopter that crashed off the coast of the Whitsunday region. This resulted in the deaths of 4 ADF personnel, these being Captain Daniel Lyon, Corporal Alexander Nags, Lieutenant Maxwell Nugent, and Warrant Officer Class 2 Joseph Laycock. There presently is on offer a grant from the Queensland State Government, this being the Queensland Remembers Grants Program. Very briefly, these grants are being made available to many organisations, including local councils. These grants are available for a wide variety of purposes, including the creation of memorials. I believe this will mean so much to many people in our region, particularly Bowen, where the townspeople have welcomed the troops many times over the years since the inaugural Talisman Sabre exercise was first conducted in and off the coast in Queensland in 2005. If successful, I believe the monument should obviously be placed on the coastline of Bowen, and the link below is where the grant structure are. So I'm hoping that when I put this in, the grants run are due in the next week or so. So I'm hoping that the grants officers looked into this and we're able to ready go if everyone supports this motion. So.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yep, Councillor.
Just a comment to follow up on Councillor Collins' resolution. That's I haven't, in respect for these four officers, I haven't heard any negative comments throughout the region with these war games or Talisman Sabre. It's a great thing for them to come to our region, and totally support Councillor Collins' resolution.
Thank you.
I think probably within a week or so might be a bit tight for design and all that sort of stuff, because if you're going to do it, we may as well do it properly. And I think whether the funding is there or not, we can either write to the Australian, the ADF itself, because I'm sure they'll want to play a partner, and it can be a joint thing. So I think it's got to be done respectfully and make sure that it's proper in design and it's not rushed. So we certainly support Councillor Collins' motion, but make sure it's done to a good standard.
Through you to Councillor Collins, were you just seeking the funding in the next week in broad terms? Because if that's the case, that's great. And then go on to the design later.
Yeah, well, the grants are open at the moment. That's all. They close in October some stage. Okay. So this is the thing about having one meeting a month. I put this in 2 days after the last council meeting.
Yeah.
So it's been in the pipeline for 5 weeks, and I actually wrote requesting that the requesting that the grants officers start looking into it at that stage. So.
Any further comments or questions? No. So can I put that to the vote though? All those in favour? Motion is carried 7-0. On to item number 7, our deputations. So there's no deputations received today. Item number 8, petitions and questions on notice. Does any councillor have any petitions they'd like to table today? No. And no questions on notice from the previous meeting. Any questions on notice from the previous meeting? No. So moving on to item number 9, questions from the public gallery, and we had no questions received for this meeting. Item number 10, our committee reports. There is no committee reports for this meeting. Item number 11, we'll move into our officers' reports, and item 11.1, the Whitsunday Planning Scheme Major Amendment, moved by Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Wright. And I will just hand over to you, Director, just to give a little bit of an update for the public, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors will be well aware that this has been in gestation for several years, so it's terrific to get to the final crescendo with the Minister's approval. There were a couple of conditions that the Minister has asked Council to include, and the report basically says that they're reasonably minor. There are some new rezonings. Council had a total of 43 recommendations or resolutions that went into the major amendment. The rezonings are probably too many to mention, but the one of particular note the council will be aware of is the anomaly of the recreation and residential zone at Wilson's Beach, where the data in the overlay created an anomaly that has taken the vehicle of the major amendment to fix. So it introduces a whole lot of new controls and new initiatives, and the good thing about it is that if this is successful, we will start working on the next batch of submissions and amendments to the planning scheme that will be coming to council.
Thank you, Director Neil. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Thank you, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Director Neil. I think a few years goes back to 2018, the first amendments came before Council for resolution. It's been going on and on since then. Happy to see this amendment's come to the end, and I hope we heed the advice given in the letter from the Deputy Premier that we never again allow such a protracted amendment process. His advice included that smaller, more regular amendments are encouraged to ensure we appropriately address the community's expectations. And unfortunately, I feel where we are at the moment that a large number of the constituents I'm here to represent don't feel their expectations are met. But in the public interest, I think we've got to put this one finally to bed, and as you said, move on with future amendments, and hopefully we can have better outcomes with the next one. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? So to put that to the vote, please. All those in favour? Motion is carried 7-0. Moving on to item 11.2, our development application for the reconfiguration of Lot 1 into 3 lots and access an easement, Sugarloaf Road, Sugarloaf. Moved by Councillor.
I'd like to move to approve, if I can second.
Seconded by Councillor Clifford. And I will get you to speak to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just after a site visit the other day with some fellow councillors and Director Neil, I'd like to approve this development as it fits in with, Taylor's got some, an alternative resolution there with some conditions attached to it, and yeah, it fits in with the surrounding environment. There's 5 acre lots on either side pretty much of this development, and I'm happy with it being still zoned rural, so they can't be cut into 4,000 square metre lots, so yeah. Happy.
Councillor Wright.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Yeah, look, I agree. I do believe after the site inspection that it should be up for approval. Majority of the land runs up a hill or a mountain, so you'd have to be a mountain goat, I think, to be able to access that. So I do feel that this is the best use for the land moving forward.
Councillor.
Thank you. Previously, this was where the quad bikes lived, which was a fairly intensive and noisy undertaking with quad bikes running up and down the Mountain Goat Hill. It was then proposed to be a tourist precinct with lots of accommodation and all sorts of things. So by supporting Councillor Simpson's alternate motion, I don't see that there will be any more traffic or any more issues for neighbouring properties than what was previously proposed and approved.
Probably one comment I'd like to make in regards to, I will support this today. However, I really feel that we should be doing a strategic plan of looking where we actually want to do some subdivision in the future. Again, we're going against the officer's recommendation, and so it's just a comment. I really feel we should be looking at that strategic planning, please. Okay, so I'll put that to the vote. All of those in favour? All of those against? Motion is carried 6-1. So next we're moving on to 11.3, the Haven Grand Term Lease. Councillor's moved. Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Collins. Would anyone like to speak to that, please?
I'll speak to this recommendation to release it out for a period of 12 months with the current growers that are there now. They've been doing a great job maintaining the land. I know this is starting to get a little bit controversial with some sporting groups and that wanting to utilise some of this land, but it's 90 odd hectares, which is far and away too big for, just to go out for the netball courts and things like that. But until such times as we get a master plan of what we're going to do with this park, I think in the interim we should just go with another 12 months with the current growers, and then hopefully by then we'll have some sort of an idea of the master plan, and go ahead with some sporting facilities, and then maybe re-tender the rest of the land out to whoever it may be.
I'd probably like to speak against this. I believe that, when we've had public interest shown in the land to put it out for tender, that we should have put it out for tender in light of being more transparent. So I won't be supporting that one today. Thanks,
Could I ask the movers and seconders to add on to the end of the motion an amendment to say to enable council to prepare or prepare, whatever you want to use, that we have a master plan and funding for this particular block, because there's nobody else here that stands here or sits here today that had more an interest in this block, because I was actually land-based by the Airlie community, some members of the Airlie community, for actually purchasing this for a sports park. We had a actual master plan design, that was 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, if we got support, it should be built by now, absolutely built by now. But no, there were some members of the community who chose to use it as a political football, and here we stand today, we've still got Kane on it. Because we can't even run a decent Masters game in the Airlie Beach, the international destination, because we haven't got sports facility. We've got netball, all of the things we face today, the AFL, the netball and all that was still around 10 years ago. And we are still talking about it today. So I support this motion. I think that the particular farmers have done a good job doing that, but 12 months we should have something in place to let this particular block of land get on and be a major regional sports facility that it should be, and what the land was purchased for.
Councillor Wright? Sorry.
Does the mover wish to change?
I'm happy to revisit, and down the track, and just my argument before is it's such a large parcel of land, I'm not sure if we'll need the whole lot at this stage, that's all.
So, Councillor Collins?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Can I just make a comment? That's actually what we're doing anyway, I think. Are we looking at?
We actually are in the process of the master planning at the moment, but I suppose this is on a resolution where we're very clear that that's actually what's required to be done in the next 12 months.
Thank you. Councillor Wright?
Thank you. Look, I do support this motion as well, particularly that last statement. I do think there is a lot of interest, and the most important thing is we're moving ahead with this master plan. So I think that's where the focus of the officers, I think, need to be at this point in time. So All we need is someone to maintain the land. They've done a good job in the past, so I really do feel that this is really important for the community that we move ahead with this master plan. So, yeah, I'm glad to see that last bit added on.
Councillor Bowden?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I think we're going to have to go through the tender process anyway. Once to develop part of the land, we will need a new lease in place. It will be required to be adjustable around what works we need. Why do we just put that off for 12 months? I've also noticed this lease is entirely for one lot and then only partially for the other lot. If we go through the tender process again, we can go for the 2 complete lots. From my observations, it appears like cane's been grown outside of the lease area on public land. So I think there's a return there for the public if we do go over the entire lot lease, and that in that new lease we can already write in these requirements for us to take parts of the land as required. It'll have to be done again in 12 months anyway. So why not put it out to the public? Why not put it out for open tender, and why not set ourselves up for success from here on, moving towards the sports park that we all know needs to be there.
Councillor Brown?
I think this is the common sense view, because I don't know about farmers, but I think this is the adjacent block, or this particular farmer used to work this particular land. So I think the point that we're missing here is this is for 12 months. We're trying to bring this forward as fast as possible. To go out to an open tender could take 3 months to start with, and then someone's going to take on that block of land for what, 12 months or 8 months? So we probably won't get anybody, and then we go back to the farmer that was originally doing it. If I was the original farmer that was doing it, we had to go back to him, I'd say we'll cut the lease in half. But so I think the point is this is a stopgap measure, because the sooner we can get this master plan done and the funding rolling, hopefully it will only take 12 months.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I just need to clarify something with Pete, if that's okay. Being a farmer myself, like I had a call the other week that they don't know where they are at the moment till this goes through. They've got inputs they need to fertilise and stuff, and with the 12 months, there's the way the harvesting operations work around here, it's done on a rotational basis, so there could be still cane there in December next year. It needs to be flexible, this outcome, and realistic on a farmer's not allowed to go and cut his 100% of his crop without the agreement of other people in the group and the mill and stuff. So it needs to be flexible over 12 months, and I'm hearing the sporting side, we need to get this master plan. We've talked about it for so long. It needs to come to us sooner rather than later, but we just need to be flexible with these growers.
Yeah, Madam Mayor. I suppose the only intent this time is for 12 months, understanding that there is the growing season and what that will look like. The intent was originally to allow the 12 months, and then as we have our master plan, we know what land we'll be utilising for initial staging of works, and there may be a portion of land left outstanding. That would then need either a tender process or a discussion back at this table about what we'd look at that second stage. So I suppose I can't envisage where we'll be in 12 months, but I think that when we know where the master planning is I think the discussion with the grower will happen and be just open and transparent with what that is. Our lease has conditions where it allows any crops to are actually owned by the council at the point of time we enter the lease, but obviously there'll be discussion with the container as well, so just make sure they're made up.
Councillor?
Thank you. Could I also suggest that we ask for expressions of interest from sporting groups as to what they require as part of the master planning, rather than us just sort of saying, oh yeah, we need 4 basketball courts and blah and blah and blah. There may be other groups out there that would like a home as well, in a central thing, and I think that will require some comms and perhaps some contact with various groups. They may not just be football and cricket and things. There may be some smaller areas of interest.
So,
So there's
Under the master plan process to date, we've been out and about talking with a range of people over the last 6 months. I take your point. There may be additional groups or components, and we will continue to do that over this 12-month period to make sure that their ideas and thoughts are put on the table through this process. So I think that's important.
I'd suggest after the last master planning, that was done before as well. So we have a huge list of groups that maybe just pick up the phone and give them a ring and say, is that still your requirements? And some sports might have dropped off, there might be some extra ones. So that was all done before as well.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, as far as I'm aware, this lease actually finished December last year. So the grower made the decision to plan going forward on a month-by-month lease, knowing that this was coming up and that a tender was a possible option. Tender puts it out evenly to everybody, and I think no matter how hopeful we all are with consultation, planning, funding, going back out to public consultation, getting state approval for access off Shute Harbour Road, and thinking we're even going to turn a sod within 12 months or on the 12-month time frame is unrealistic. I'd just like to request from the acting director a realistic time frame or the CEO that you would think that we will actually be requiring part of this land, and whether that is realistic to say it's within just this 12-month lease, or if there is going to be a number of years that would see a benefit in the tender process.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me. I suppose, Councillor Bowen, I think that 12 months we will ascertain, what land we need in the preceding 12 months. I suppose is probably what the main aim is part of the consultation which has occurred. There's a number of people that have indicative areas of land where they are. I suppose the master planning process will allocate an area of land we'll need, which then we'll know what will be surplus, and that's why we'll be able to tender the surplus of land at that point in time, as it's more well known. Yes, it is going to take time to do the works, it's going to take time to do the actual detailed design, but at least I believe we'll actually know the area of land we're looking.
Very quick one, thank you, Councillor Bowen.
If we went through the tender process, established a new lease now, we could have that in the lease up for discussion in 12 months, 18 months, whenever we wanted the land to discuss that then.
Yeah, I suppose through me, it's just the problem we have with the lease, it is actually for the quiet enjoyment of a parcel of land. Once you actually do that, you actually have tenure. So it does make it very difficult for us to structure a lease that we're going to take land back for you, because it means an investment. So hence the proposal is do have some certainty in tendering, which is quite important. We may go to tender and get the same respondent and just have the one. So I suppose it's to benefit to actually enable council to do the master planning, which is the real focus, I suppose, of this whole thing, and actually look after the sporting clubs.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? I do thank the grower for what they've done over the last few years there, but again, my position on this one is that because we've had public interest, I feel it should go out to tender, so I won't be supporting this. But I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is carried 5-2. Moving on to 11.4, the RV park in Proserpine. So that's moved by Councillor Rocker. Do I have someone to second that? Seconded by Councillor Clifford. It is that we do not enter into further lease with the Roman Catholic Trust Corporation. So does anyone have any comments or questions? Thank you, Councillor Collins.
This RV park has a long history. It goes back to 2013-14 when the goes back to when the Chamber of Commerce, which existed back then, unfortunately it's now under Whitsunday Chamber of Commerce, which probably wouldn't really give two hoots about Proserpine, to be quite honest, but Anyway, look, at the time, the problem was, you know, they've seen all these vehicles driving by Proserpine all the time. Kept driving past, they stop at, there's a legal one, it was at Bloomsbury, they stopped at the service station there, and they go through Guffalunga. We always had a reputation of it not a very friendly RV town. And this is going to happen again. The economic benefit of bringing to Proserpine since it's opened in 2019 has been amazing. It's you see the people up the street every day when it's open, and it's done a wonderful thing for the town. And you know, I know it was closed for COVID, but once COVID was lifted, the people were coming back, travelling through again. And at the moment, you see people walking up and down the street every day. They might spend much money, but the thing is, what they are spending is money being spent in our town. We've got the fuel, we've got the pubs at night time. They're getting the meals. They've got this chemist, and it benefits every single person in the whole region. Now, when we did the Proserpine Sustainability Master Plan in 2017, this was one of the things was that they wanted it for future sustainability of the business and the town of Proserpine. And here we are. It opened on October 2019. Here we are, 4 years later, trying to hit it on the head. Well, you know, I'm a bit concerned. We spend money willy-nilly at all these other places around the region, and this one opportunity this arises, and no one wants to hit it on the head. So I'm hoping that I can get the support around the table to keep it going. So.
Councillor Bunker.
I've got no doubt in what Councillor Collins is saying, because they are good if you can get away with it. But for $600,000 for us to go into this and not even own the land, when prior to this the people would stay and stay down the corner in front of the mill and then up little nooks and crannies, they'll find somewhere to park. Or we can approach the show committee. Or I'd sooner spend $600,000 on the dam and make that a regional and national destination, or even $600,000 on our own caravan park to get people in there. So I don't doubt what Councillor Collins is saying, but I think if we walked up and down the street to the business house and say, "Do you want council to pay $600,000 and don't own the land?" And I think we had a count there, Councillor Wright, that's Councillor Wright, Director Wright, about the numbers that we had there on average. It just doesn't stack up, and it would be cheaper for us to go and give $10,000 to every business up the main street, and we'd walk away still in front. So, yes, if we had the land, originally we tried to get the mill to help us out over there, so that would have been a good option as well. But and we tried that as a stopgap measure while we opened the dam up. But the future asset for us is our dam, as far as I'm concerned, and it can be a national place of interest and attraction.
Thank you, Councillor Brunker, and I totally agree with what you're saying, and I do believe that it's a lot more, that 600,000 is only an estimate. It possibly would be a lot more than that we'd be looking at to do those works in the current economic state. Would that be correct? Yep, thank you. And just to Councillor Collins, Whitsunday Coast Chamber is actually now combined with Proserpine Chamber as well. Councillor Wright.
Through the chair, I probably don't agree with closing this either. Look, I think there was a lot of consultation done quite a few years ago, from my knowledge, and yeah, there was a need from the community for this to happen. To invest it back into the businesses in the main street. So, look, I think what this RV park does, it's a different market to a holiday park. It's different to Lake Proserpine. It's different to the surrounding caravan parks. This is solely not for a holiday. This is just to restock and move on. I think these groups, they do talk, and I think it is going to get around quite quickly. That's not a friendly place to go. So, look, I think, and if there is an option of maybe helping the Catholic Church or us in a combined effort to possibly get a grant to do this work, I know it's not our land, but this is what we agreed to, or around the table back in 4 or 5 years ago. We knew what the conditions were then. We knew it wasn't our land, but we agreed to this. So I just feel that this is good for Proserpine, and yeah, I don't support this motion today.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Acting Director Shuttlewood. On top of the estimated 600K, how much do we pay a year in rent? Right, round figures will be fine.
Yeah, through the Mayor, $25,000 per annum.
Well, it's something we don't, it's clearly of very little use to the Catholic Church because the school's closed, and as I said, I just find it incredible. I'd rather spend, like Councillor Branca, and somebody can minute this, that I'm actually agreeing with him. I would rather spend the money up at either our caravan park and put in a stopover thing there where they get the first night free or something, or up at the lake. You know, I've still got kids walking through grass this side because they haven't got a footpath. I'm sorry, but to spend that kind of money on something that's not ours, I object strongly.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd just like to say I attended a Whitsunday Chamber of Commerce meeting in Proserpine yesterday, talking about advancing, incorporating a number of business owners in Proserpine. It's not my first meeting I've attended in Proserpine either. I hope that co-joined chamber continues to move forward and help our whole area. With this, I don't see it being specifically one market. It is free accommodation, free parking for people to stay overnight when council and other people, earn money out of this. And that's where I think we're in competition with not only our own business but other businesses. If it was something that came up where we could find, better land that incorporated decent parking, tourism information centre like we supply out at Collinsville, I might look at this differently on council land. But when it is only leased on somebody else's land for something that is really just giving away accommodation that other people charge for, I'm sorry, I can't support.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a comment, I've sort of got a foot in both camps here. Come to town every day and I see, like Councillor Collins said, the people walking up and down the street, and the benefits to all the shops, the laundromats, we've got a new pub opening up soon, and I don't support spending, like that 600,000 was penciled in when I first started on council. I'd assume that it would be double that right now, but surely we can come to some arrangement that, as is, like without too many upgrades, negotiate possibly another lease to keep it gravel, and when it rains to close it or whatever. Why it works so well, it's right in the middle of town. If we find something at Wilmar or the showgrounds, people won't walk. They won't come. I just feel that, and we close it in November every year. If we close it at the end of September when this lease expires, that's today, tomorrow, or whatever. Even if we can keep it open for the interim till November and maybe give us time, the wet season, to look at some options and see where we're at in March. That's just my opinion.
Councillor
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the CEO, there was suggestion that we go and talk to the mill. That was the original option for where we were going to have, and then they withdrew. But in a recent conversation, it was suggested that we go and talk to them again. So,
Yeah, I think that's the history, and I think that was one of the options, was to go and talk to the mill in relation to that. Unfortunately, at the moment we're pretty busy in relation with the crush, but we would go and talk to them again and see whether there's any opportunities, not just for this type of venture, but any other venture for some of their land.
If we could have got away with maybe just leasing it like we have been and not locked into our own town planning scheme, which I support. I can understand the director's concerns that we've got to be seen to be doing the right thing, and if we turn a blind eye to ourselves, well, why don't we turn a blind eye to everyone? But the option is certainly there if we forego this lease. That there's nothing to stop the Catholic Church, you know, having a little sideline by themselves and probably running the hat around every night and asking the, you know, like the old poor box, and asking the punters in there to contribute to maintaining the grounds there. And I'm sure they'd probably get a good result. But again, whatever it's going to cost to do that, the fact that we don't own the land and it's a $25,000 lease every year, I'd be surprised if any business owner up the street would think that we're doing the right thing in a business sense. But and where we can then go on to other options, whether it's the mill again, we can they might have changed management at the mill and prepared to help us out, because that was a long time ago when they first entertained that. But yeah, I can understand Councillor Collins's position. They'll pull up, you'll get them on the day because they're parked all around the streets there anyway. They're even parking out near the little banana stall there now. But unfortunately, that's a huge cost to pay.
Councillor Collins?
Just very briefly, I've listened to everyone's arguments here. A couple of things in the report that I know it's a town plan, but any other RV stops in Queensland have sealed parking areas? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Where?
Uphill.
That's a road. That's a road. I'm talking about the designated areas, and I'm just curious, what is the cost of Collinsville costing us? And that includes the running of the showgrounds out there. That'd be a real good question. If someone could come back to me later on at a later date and let me know, please. I'm not going to obviously know now, but it'd be curious just to see what it is they're costing us, including the staff man that works there every day. So.
Okay, any other further comments or questions? Just fine.
Yeah, final one. Just to clarify for the public, I guess people would like to see more business in Proserpine. Personally, I think since this was first put forward, we've seen a great increase in the traffic, people and business come through Proserpine. Just clarify from the Deputy Mayor's comments if we could just extend for another lease. Councillor Brunker saying we need to abide by the rules, just to Director McGaffin, that we are tied. Currently, if we want to move forward, we're tied to a development approval. We do need to invest this large sum of money. We can't just extend for a period and stay in the status quo, can we?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the conditions on the original approval required council to have improved the asset before now. So council's dragging the chain. Essentially, council can do whatever it wants, but I do heed recognition of what Councillor Brunker said, as far as we need to lead and show the direction on the way forward. And if we don't comply with the planning conditions, then it's very difficult to be serious when we're taking others to task because they haven't complied with the conditions.
Okay, so let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? So the motion is carried 4-3.
Please.
Councillor Collins called for a division. Taylor, did you get
I agree with 4 against.
4 against?
Not
Four for it. Yeah, you're right, Taylor? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so moving on to 11.5, the Boathaven Beach off-leash area. So it's moved by Councillor Clifford, seconded by Councillor Wright. Anyone would like to speak to that? Thank you, Councillor.
Just very briefly, I believe we've not had any significant complaints about this, and it finishes at 8:30 in the morning. So it's the only all-tide beach that we have in Ely Beach. Everything else turns into mud flat at low tide, and the people have been behaving themselves. I might ask Director Julie to do a little on what has actually been going on down there, but it's been very well received by the doggy community. And I don't believe there've been any incidents whatsoever down there. They're just a nice little group. And as I said, they're gone, well, they're all back on leash again at 8:30, so it's not interfering with the public.
Thank you. Director Riley.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillors, Councillor Clifford is correct. There's one complaint. It was basically in regards to dogs swimming within the enclosure, the stinger enclosure itself. I'll be honest and let councillors know that the numbers of dogs have been down over the last few months down there. Could be because it was winter time as well, you know, shorter days, cooler mornings and that sort of thing. But the folk that are down there utilising it with off lead, there hasn't been any problems at all, and the rest have got them back on lead by 8:30, and the officers have been patrolling it quite heavily each day on that Friday.
Any comments or questions? No, councillors. Yes, Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I get down there a bit. Quite a few people use the beach for different things. I've seen the dogs running around, pretty much keeping to their areas, staying out of the way of people doing their yoga and other things. Just the one thing I'd like clarified is that as we do put up these signs, that we will be ensuring there's suitable doggy bags and bins available on the beach as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillor, yep, bins are already there. So the signs will go up with the new hours on it, and generally always dog bag dispenser is installed as well.
No more comments or questions? Put that to the vote. All of those in favour? All of those against? Motion is carried 6-1. Next on to 11.6, the relocation of the Flying Fox colony in Collinsville. Councillor Wright has moved, seconded by Councillor Bronca. Councillor Wright, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you. Through the chair. This has been a long few years. And yeah, look, I know there's a lot of members of the community that have contacted me over the years, and I know, Scott, we've done a lot of exercises like smoking exercises, and we've tried wavy men, we've tried high pressure water, irrigation, a range of different things, and nothing seems to work. Just recently, we've also put out a tender for tree trimming, and because of as soon as the contractors find out that it is for the flying fox, trimming up the trees that the flying fox are in, they don't want to touch it. So we're really struggling to get contractors to come in, and people are just living with it. Look, one lady I spoke to, she said that elderly couple, they have their grandkids come over, and they're constantly cleaning the kids' slippery slides. It's a fixture, so they can't take it inside. Because there's just bat droppings all over it every night. Their cars, it's eating the paint off the cars. It's just not a good not a good situation. It's not healthy, and I think this is sort of our last resort. We've tried everything else, and I really like it. And I think everyone heard from the community last Wednesday just how dire straits it is. They are in people's backyards. And it's definitely not ideal, and I really would like to give this a good go. And if this does get up today, I just urge the community to let them do their job, and however long that takes. But 100% support this today.
Thank you. Well, while I sympathise with the residents, these are native creatures. They are not an introduced pest, and I have issues down in 4802 with the what they call Mayan birds.
Indian Mayan.
They're those, which are in plague proportions, absolute plague proportions. They are an introduced pest, and I'd rather get rid of the introduced pests before we start messing around with our native critters.
Well, in responding to that, I don't think there'll be 20,000 minor birds down at Airlie Beach. There might be, you know, anyway, just, yeah. I'll bet you now there's not 20,000 of them flying around and carrying on like the bats do. But I would also like to add to this motion that, as we discussed prior, it was a guarantee to get rid of them. This is a last resort for us, and the fact that we do a letterbox drop or notify the people of Collinsville that this is our last chance to do that, and provide some comms for that, because this just can't keep going on and on and on and on, because if they come back again and land in the creek, we might have to take a different attack and say, well, best the devil we know where they're sleeping than the devil we don't, because you just can't keep going on. Because what worries me is forcing them out of that creek, they're going into the public trees and then of course annoying the residents. So I'd certainly like some comms done up to get a letterbox drop or something around the whole town to say this is our last resort, because a part of this we're also training our local workers as well. So hopefully this will work to get rid of them.
So just to clarify, Councillor Brunker, you're wanting it to be added to the bottom? And
Yeah, just to say that some comms be done up to notify the public that this is our last chance to try and get rid of them.
Councillor Wright, are you okay with that? I'd just like to speak to this. I was out there, I spoke to the lady, she was in tears. I understand how traumatic this is, having bats in your backyard, the smell, the noise, but it's not in the budget, and $234,000 is a lot of money when they could possibly come back next year. We're also, I believe, I'd like to get some clarification from someone when the actual breeding season is due to start, because if they start to breed, then the contractors will come in and they won't be able to actually do their job. And also that I think that some of them are due to leave shortly anyway. Is that correct? So can I have someone to clarify that, please?
When Scott's here, he'll come through and give some information in regards to blacks and woodlands. Thanks, Scott.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, councillors. So, in relation to your questions about breeding seasons, we have two species of flying fox in Collinsville, black flying fox and little reds. They both have slightly different breeding seasons. So the little reds have already had their breeding season, coming into the black flying fox breeding season. So at the moment we have around 1,000 black flying fox in town and around 11,000 little reds. So September is their birthing period. Then after that they'll go into the crashing period, which is in October. So there is a chance that if we engage a contractor, they will need to consider the breeding season and the crashing season too, in relation to what they do. So, yes.
Just a question for Scott. So do they take that all into consideration, Scott, before they start?
Yes, they do, Councillor. And the other point I was going to make was talked about the breeding season. The little reds are due to leave town around the end of November, December. They are seasonal. In past years, the little reds usually peak in their numbers towards the end of September. Last year they were at 26,000. At the moment they're about 11,000. So it's quite possible that more little reds might come into town. But we expect them to move out of town at the end of November, early December anyway. This is part of their annual migration.
Councillor Brock.
Madam Mayor, just reminded that the funding wasn't an issue because our Director of Finance told us before that there could be a quarterly review and ensure that we'll be able to get the funding for that. So funding shouldn't be an issue. I just support the motion.
Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support the fact that we'd like to better manage the flying foxes, try and get them out of the people's homes. I think we had them in a park before we tried to manage them and move them into people's homes. I also know we've spent about $30,000 on assets for us to be able to manage them ourselves. I think this is the best way forward. I put forward this company from research. I've looked into it a bit more. Charters Towers had them in 2020, $204,000. Bats came back. Charters Towers says they did 43 different dispersal activities, cost a lot of money, and none of the activities have had major effects and only short-term results. Charters Towers bought in this company the end of last year, had to extend, got into breeding season, had to come back in February, removed 99.9% of the bats, and on the 27th of May, they had 5,000 fly back into town after having just spent how many hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is the problem, that we might move them on. Our annual report says within this year we were down to 0 bats in Collinsville. I feel whatever we do, there's going to have to be a sustained ongoing maintenance program as well. I think we're looking at spending the money. We're spending the money over a period of time. We've invested in the assets. Let's keep doing what we're doing. From everything I've looked at, we're not doing anything different to what they'll do. They're just doing it a little bit longer and a little bit harder. We can constantly maintain this, get on top of it when the numbers get down again seasonally, and make sure we disperse them as they come back into town, wrangle them into the areas where they're not directly affecting the residents without costing ratepayers near $240,000.
Thank you through the chair. Look, Councillor Bowman, like doing these exercises, like the staff are exhausted. They've totally exhausted every avenue that they possibly can. And yeah, I was part of one of the exercises, and to get up and be there by 5 o'clock in the morning, that was an early start. By the end of the week, I was bucketed. So I just feel that staff have done everything that they possibly can. This is our only option. And if they were in the main street of Early Beach or somewhere like that, like it's setting a precedent. Like I just feel, that the people have just had enough. Like really would like your support today with this, please.
We do have that.
I think this actually sets a precedent, because if we do this and they fly into Proserpine or Early Beach, the expectation of the community is that we're going to fork out every time they fly in somewhere this kind of money to get rid of them. So I think this sets a precedent. We've also got yellow crazy ants we're dealing with, Indian minor birds we're dealing with, all need funding. The issue is the cost and the funding to me, and I believe that's my job to sort of bang on some doors and down in Brisbane maybe, and sort of advocate for some more funding into this pest control. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Councillor.
Like a week or so ago, when I first saw this proposal, I stood against spending money in Collinsville. But after the on-site visit last week and having a look, like this is a serious health risk, and I'd like to ask Scott Hardy his comments on that, because if we don't relocate the flying foxes, I think we need to relocate the people. I couldn't live there. I couldn't ask anyone, my worst enemy, to live underneath these things. So, could you explain what the health risk is, please, Scott?
So the situation we have at Collinsville at the moment is we have 12,000 flying fox. They're in 20 trees in 11 properties. Some people have over 1,000 flying fox in their backyard. So we do know that flying fox carry viruses and other diseases, such as Hendra lyssavirus. But flying fox are a little bit like us. We can carry the flu, but not everyone has the flu. So there will be some flying fox out there which may have lyssavirus and Hendra, but not all of them will. The other issues is around the bacteria and other diseases in their faeces. So when they're defecating all over the place, there's salmonella, other diseases in the faeces. So if you have kids in the backyard playing on the playgrounds, etc., there is a risk that they may contract other diseases like salmonella. So there is a health issue there for the community. The flying fox are a nuisance out there at the community because of their numbers. So there's 11 properties directly affected, but it's really a neighbourhood issue. So it's not just 11 properties, it's their neighbours and the neighbours' neighbours. So it is a community issue out there. Thank you.
Councillor Collins.
Occasionally around Proserpine, you see one hanging off the power line, you think, shit, that's a big bugger. But you know, ship, that's it, ship doesn't vote. And the thing is, you look at it, and last Wednesday, when we were out there, Gary and I were driving down the street, I looked up at this pine tree and I think, holy dooly, there was more bats in these trees. And then then all of a sudden, half a dozen flew across. I thought, wow, I wouldn't want to be living there, honestly. It was, I was a bit sceptical about it beforehand, but after looking at the trees in one street there, holy dooly, it was an incredible amount of bats. And I thought, you know, I wouldn't want to live like it. I wouldn't want anyone in this room living like it either. So I'll be supporting this. I wasn't going to, but I am now after going out there last Wednesday. So yeah.
Councillor Clifford.
Through you, can I ask? So what if we do this and it doesn't work? If that's the end of it, I might change my mind on it. But to be forking out $250,000 every year to move on some flying foxes, which, as I will again reiterate, are natives and are protected, I just can't do that, because the issues that happened out at where was it? Sorry, I've gone blank. Yeah, no. There's in the middle of Cannonvale. There's a huge bat colony, by the way. They used to live in my backyard. But out at Charters Towers, it's had no effect. They're back. And I would much rather, put our efforts into getting rid of the yellow crazy ants and the other pest species that we have that are not native.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, they are in Cannonvale. You can sit dead centre of Airlie Beach Main Street under a tree where the surrounding food owners have to wipe the tables down every day, put umbrellas up to keep the bird feces off the people eating, but they can't clean the sidewalk every day. It's equal to some of the places I saw. Again, my thing is, even looking at Charters Towers experiences, when Councillor Wright said about the staff being worn down, once Charters Towers uses the contractors, it is up to their staff to try and keep the bats out of town, and they're fighting them constantly. And that is what is going to continue to happen here. We know that the bats come and go. We only have, 1,080 blacks. The reds go, in the report says about 1,000. Charters Towers was dealing with 80 to 100,000 bats. That's when they got to the issue of calling in these contractors. I don't think 1,000 bats on 11 properties can justify equal expenditure. I think we need to look at the realistic thing that we do this now, they're going to be back. Let's use the assets and the staff we have to manage them, and just know that's going to be an ongoing job.
Thank you, through the Mayor. Just to correct you there, Councillor Blayman, it's not 1,000, it's 10,000. So, so look, I do feel, again, like, and I know Councillor Collins also mentioned about the pine trees, it's really dangerous. Like this Mrs. Penne who lives in the house, there's falling branches, like she's continually having to clean up her yard. She's an elderly lady, like they can't do it, like they need some help. And yeah, look, if we're just gonna throw it aside because of the money, look, this is what we're here for, is to help the community. Like this is our job. So I think it's definitely worth a shot. Yep, look, I understand there's no guarantee, but if we make it clear to the residents that this is our last try, this is the last roll of the dice, and then hopefully, and our staff might also, be able to learn a bit off these contractors as as well, and might pick up a few tips and might help us if they do come back. But with Charters Towers, there was 80 to 100,000, so that's a hell of a lot more than what we're asking. So I think the chances of it being successful is, well, I would think would be slightly better. And also, look, I've watched them over the years, and they do come back to the place where the rooster's at. So if the blacks are still in Pelican Park, that's where they all come back to. If we can relocate the roost so it's out of Collinsville, I just feel that that's where they'll go. They'll go where the other flying foxes are. So I really do think that this is worth a shot. The community deserve a shot with this.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the mover and the seconder, could we have something on there that this is it? This is the last ditch attempt at moving them on.
Isn't that what that says now?
Not really. Council's last chance. Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Collins.
Just very briefly, to Director Julie, the costings. I thought there was two quotes. One was 180 something. One was the 240 with a guarantee sort of thing, isn't it? So, what does that guarantee cover? Sorry, I know it's a big picture, but
No, it's okay, councillor, we've looked into it and they say removal, guaranteed the removal and to be gone. A little bit unsure if they're going to remove them, you know, but we may have to have some officers, as we have sort of now, just being up there monitoring and getting in contact with them. Yeah.
I think we've also found a contractor in Collinsville who's prepared to work on trees as well. Is that right?
Thank you. Just briefly, Madam Mayor, page 68 of the agenda, I spoke to 1,080 black flying foxes. There are 9,000 odd reds, which separated from that, but they are seasonal. They'll come and go. Pretty much like they've seen in Charters Towers, no matter what we do, they'll come back next year. And we'll be in this exact same situation with the residents still complaining whether we say it's the last ditch effort or not. They're still going to be affected by flying foxes. I still believe we're better off looking at a long-term management plan. There is no quick fix for this. Other places have been dealing with this for years and years and years, and they've learned that the only thing you can do is long-term management. That's where I think we've got to be. I think that's where the money's best spent. I've seen about $36,000 spent on tree trimming, 22-23 financial year. Contractors will be out there. The only hope we've got is investing in that tree trimming. We get rid of all the flying foxes, spend $230,000+. Don't keep spending money on trees and on management. We're just going to end up straight back here, straight back having the same discussion and them saying, you did it last time, why not this time?
And realistically, it's going to be a lot more than that figure by the time we have to then maintain and keep them out. So we're still paying costs, council still more costs there, and also the tree trimming on top of that again. So realistically, that price there would probably be closer to $300,000.
Through you, Chair. So we did consider additional tree trimming before we sought this quote. But at the moment we've got 20 trees, and if we have to trim the trees at night, we don't get much change out of $15,000 per tree. So if we pick a figure of $10,000 per tree, that's $200,000 we would spend trimming trees, and what would happen then, in all likelihood, is those flying fox go into adjacent trees. So we're stuck with the flying fox. So that's one of the reasons why we haven't pursued further tree trimming, is that we believe that that action would just result in the flying fox just moving into adjacent trees. So instead of spending the $200,000 trimming those 20 trees, we've thought, well, no, let's have a look at this option. By bringing contractors to basically herd the bats out of town towards a more suitable roost location, which we think is Pelican Creek, possibly around Aspinall Road. which is about 1.5 kilometres out of town. It's a difficult decision, this, to weigh up and work out where we're best spending the money. And we do know that once we bring the contractors into town, council staff will need to provide a supporting role and also a longer term role, and we will need a longer term plan and strategy to make sure that they don't come back. One observation we've had is that the flying fox are fairly transient, and they're not bound up to these trees which they're occupying at the moment. So they are willing to move between trees, through the neighbourhood, through the community. So there is a reasonable chance that if we try and herd them out of town towards Pelican Creek, that we have a reasonable likelihood of success, because they're not, they haven't spent years in the same tree like Charters Towers. Up in Charters Towers, a lot of those flying fox have been in the roost for more than 10 years, some up to 20 years. So in Collinsville, it's only 6 to 12 months, 18 months in the Norfolk Island trees.
Can I just ask another question in regards to community? Have any of the community come together to form a little bit of a group to maybe help? I mean, Collinsville are great for getting together and in the community and helping each other. Has there been any kind of community come together to help us out with this problem as well?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we've had about 13 management actions over the last 2.5 years out of Collinsville to try and deter and move the flying fox on. We've tried to work in partnership with the residents to try and do the smoking, the irrigation, the noise. For some of the management deterrent actions, we've probably had 10 landholders participating. We've done letter drops and written to the landowners trying to coordinate the deterrent action so that we have a better bang for buck. On some occasions it's worked okay, reasonably well, and other occasions we've struggled. There have been landholders who've been out there at 4 o'clock in the morning for weeks on end, creating noise, lights, smoking, so some landholders have put in a lot of time on that.
Thank you, through you to Scott. How much would it cost to remove the trees, the ones where they're all living in? Because I'm sorry, I'd like someone to come out and trim my trees for me too, because I have cockatoos in them that make an awful noise at 6 o'clock in the morning. I just don't see the difference. So I would support removing the offending trees, but not ongoing forever.
So we have trimmed trees in Collinsville before. One of the conditions we have is that when the flying fox occupy the tree as a roost, we have to do the tree trimming at night. So we have to bring the contractors in with scissor lifts, lights, and it's between $10,000 and $15,000 per tree. And what happens then is that the flying fox look for other trees. So we're just transferring the problem.
We're at 1,080 blacks. We know the reds will come and go. How many management activities have you undertaken this year, considering it's the end of September? If this is a major issue for Collinsville, how many actions have we undertaken in the past 9 months?
Through you, Madam Chair. The last 2 management actions were mid-August and mid-July. I think going further back, we did another 2 management actions in April when there were black flying fox there. So probably 4 management actions in the last, say, 4 to 6 months. So February this year, 3rd to the 6th of April, 18th of April, 15th to the 18th of May, 17th to the 20th of July, 15th to the 17th of August. We've tried all sorts of deterrent action, from smoke to irrigation, mobile irrigators, wavy men, we've got about 10 wavy men which we lend out to residents to try and deter the flying fox. They work better with the black flying fox than the little reds. The little reds are more difficult to dislodge. We've had a crack at everything which has been recommended through experts, other councils as well.
Thank you. I've just got one final question. In the complaint summary for 2023-24, it says 11 people have complained. Is that correct?
They're the CRMs which we've received through our complaints management register. We receive other phone calls and emails through other.
So that figure is correct though, 11.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I guess we better put this one to the vote. So all those in favour and all those against. So motion is carried 4-3. You can, it'll be online, people can look it up. So all those in favour, can you please put your hand up? Taylor, all good? Thank you. Okay, so just check on timeline. It's not here yet. So on to 11.7, our annual delegations review of Council to the Chief Executive Officer, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the motion.
Yes.
I'd just like to move a motion slightly different from the officer's recommendation. Number one, that we delegate the powers contained within the delegations register to the Chief Executive Officer in accordance with the Local Government Act, subject to the limitations and conditions of Schedule 2. We endorse Chief Executive Officer to amend his delegations and that they also reflect those limitations and conditions. There's a reason for decisions up there that just basically goes through Schedule 2, which, as Councillor Clifford would say, requires decisions to be brought before us if they have prickles on them. This is just some overarching conditions that if something is exceeding the allocated budget, it comes back. If it's beyond a matter that's within their authority, that if it's outside of the planning scheme, or that any delegate believes it is likely to adversely affect council's relationships with the public at large. So this is just putting some conditions of Schedule 2. It's in place at the moment. This is just making sure that those overarching conditions remain on the powers that are given to us, to the state, that we delegate away. So that realistically, if anything's questionable...
You just meant to be...
Oh, yeah, wait, I'll have to wait for a second, that's all right, before
you second it? Yeah. Thank you. Now you can continue.
Thank you. So basically, this is just there to ensure that we remain the decision makers. The CEO and the council officers are out there operationally enacting the decisions that come from this table. Thank you.
Can I ask the CEO, what was the difference from our previous policy of delegations to the original motion?
Looking towards James, but I think this is actually what we currently have. I think probably just to give some guidance, those are fairly broad elements in using delegations. Our officers have regard to those things, but we're often balancing a lot of components, money up and down in relation to planning, 15 different elements in relation to it, the way we exercise our allocation. So yes, they are give us guidance in relation to those elements where they need to come to the council, but we are using delegations multiple times every day.
So just to clarify, this doesn't really change anything.
As So, as far as I'm aware, this is actually what we currently have. Obviously, the delegations, there are new acts added to the delegation.
Thank you. Any other further comments or questions? Can I put this to vote? All those in favour? All those against? Motion is carried 4-3. So moving on to 11.8, our 2022-23 operational plan quarter 4 review. Moved by Councillor Wright. I'll second that one. So
You second it.
I did.
Okay.
Got in before you, Councillor Brunker. So would Director like to speak to the report at all?
Speak to it. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Essentially, the presentation of Q4 of the operational plan report is a legislative requirement to show council's performance as adopted in the operational plan. Each department has contributed each section of the operation with the status of it. Basically, it is as it's read. It is a fairly presented fairly easily to read document as a red light, green light type traffic light view. I suppose any comments or questions regarding individual items would be to the relevant.
Any comments or questions? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, through the chair. Just, there is one here and it says it's got a green spotlight on it saying it's completed. So to meet the capital works delivery target, so I didn't think that we had.
Pass it over in a sec, but basically I think green is we kept, at each of the quarters, we were recalibrating the capital expenditure, deferring capital components. So in fact it's green because we did meet those requirements because we kept changing them for that quarter and reducing our capital program. I think you are correct in relation to from the date we started the year to the date we finished the year, and the annual report is probably looking at more. It is highlighting that we actually only completed a portion, somewhere between 40 and 50% of our program from the first date we started. But every quarter and every budget review, we do refine that and determine which ones get pushed into the next year going.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you. Briefly, through you, Madam Mayor. Realistically, mine's a similar one. I know 100% completion on implementing changes to the current customer relationship management system. Again, I know implementing changes might be one set of goalposts. I'm just wondering if we are moving further ahead on improving our customer relationship management system, and I have seen an improved email came back with some information which actually let me know what it was in relation to. So are there further changes planned in this financial year beyond what's marked ticked off as completed in this review?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I suppose the action there was about the changes to the system itself. There is recently considerable staff training as well too to make sure that the system actually meets up with what actually happens on the ground. So yes, there are still things to occur which actually are continuous improving with regards to the CRM process. So yeah, it is ongoing, but as far as that action recording was actually a particular item.
Any other further comments or questions? So can I put that to the vote that we received? Yes, all those in favour? Motion's carried 7-0. Okay. On to 11.9, 2022-2023 annual report. Moved by Councillor Clifford, seconded by Councillor Simpson. And would you, Acting Director, like to speak to this report?
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. Like the operational plan, it's a legislative requirement for an annual report. Typically, it is fairly heavy with financial data. Within it also too talks about there's a number of items which are required to be reported under the Act regarding certain things. It's a good opportunity as well for councils to highlight where things have done really, really well. Awards and recognitions. It just represents the performance of the council for the period. We just think it's recognised too. There's considerable work happens through our communications team in preparing the report to actually get to the stage where it is, and I'll leave the report.
Any comments or questions?
Through you, it's a great report, beautifully put together. Thank you to you and the team.
You're fine with Councillor Bowman, or were you saying you wanted to? Okay, all good. Okay. So if there's no further comments or questions, can I put that to the vote that we receive it? All those in favour? Motion's carried 7-0. Maybe you can squeeze another one in. So 11.2, our monthly finance report, moved by Councillor Clifford. I'd like to second that. Thank you, Councillor Simpson. And thank you very much, Leah. We've got you. Would you like to speak to your report, please?
Yeah, more than happy to. So today we have in front of us our August month-end financial report. So this is based on our regional budget as we're currently in the process of going through our first budget review. So Council's operating surplus stood at $38.1 million after charging depreciation of about $5.3 million to date. The surplus relates to the half-year rates that have been levied and issued, so that revenue has been recognised, and the expenditure still to be spent over the rest of the financial year. Interest for investments is tracking well ahead of budget already. Interest rates have proven to be remaining high, a lot higher than what we'd set in March, April last year when we were putting the budget together. So that will need to be reviewed during the next budget review to reflect what the interest rates are actually currently sitting at, which is pretty substantial. So what we've levied our ratepayers is on target to meet budget at 97% as well. Our total direct expenditure is sitting at 81% of our year to date, so there is a slight underspend there. In staff, we're sitting at 91%, so there are still vacancies that we have across the organisation, therefore we're not seeing those expenses come through. And also what we've spent on supplies, currently under budget, sitting at 75%. Some of that's due to phasing, so phasing might not be correctly allocated in the budget with what month we intended to spend the funds. So that's something that we are scrutinising as part of the second budget review, or the first budget review this year, sorry. And some of it may be to do with some of those vacancies also across the organisation, delivering on those. Our cash balance remains at healthy levels at the end of the month, sitting at $136 million. It's fairly high because of some additional funds we received early in the financial year at the end of last financial year with our financial assistance grant coming in, capital works projects that will carry over into our first budget review as well, for consideration by councillors, an advance payment of our waste levy for 26-27 financial year. Hit our bank much earlier than we had expected to hit. So rates and charges have decreased from $56.6 million in July down to $28.2, which reflects our rating period. We had an early September due date, therefore the rest of those funds will come through on the next report. General debtors balances were sitting at standard levels where we currently or normally see them sitting at. We had the two-term deposits still at the end of the month. Fortunately, one of them was maturing in September, so we have reinvested some funds at very competitive rates as well, which is really good to see. But we're currently sat at a weighted average return on our investments at 4.89% for the month, which is substantially higher than the last few years. Capital delivery, so we spent $7.5 million or 15% of our planned full year capital budget of $51.4 million. So that's what's been delivered up to the end of August, and that excludes commitments. We've got $16.7 million that's been committed to date, which equates to 47.1% of the full year capital budget. Some of that does relate to carryover projects, with that budget yet to be realised in the next review, as well as DRFA works that was undertaken. So our sustainability ratios on page 8 gives us a clear indication that we're all within our targeted range, which is a good position for us to be in. think lastly, wanted to have a chat about the budget achievement. So we've got a couple orange flags that we've spoken through with this report with our expenditure, making sure we review that alignment and spend what we've actually budgeted to spend operationally. And then also on capital delivery, making sure that we continue to spend in that space and recognise those carryover budget coming in. Other than that, our Q1 budget review is currently underway. We have workshops this week across departments. We have a budget risk register that is maintained also, and so we're capturing those budget risks across the business to put to council to make a decision around where we sit with our first budget review. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very clear. Very happy to see 47% capital allocation after Councillor Wright said about last year. I think to be at this point, moving that far ahead, setting us up for success this year. I just noticed with the higher interest rates, getting the term deposits 10 million's shifted into cash. Is that just because it's within 3 months of turning around? It'll still be within a window, hopefully, before interest rates come. But
Through the chair.
that is still receiving the highest interest rates and will be rolled over.
Thank you for your question, Councillor. Through the chair, that is correct. The way our accounting standard works, it depends when our term deposit falls due as to whether it's recognised on the investment line or the cash line. Because it's within the 3-month window, Councillor Clay just mentioned, it's shifted up into cash. It's still locked in a term deposit until mid-September. But as mentioned, we have reinvested a further 20 mil at interest rates over 5.24%, which is very significant.
No, it's just going beauty. Sorry. I still have bonds of beauty.
Bonds of beauty, okay. Thank you. Any other further questions for you? No. Can I put that to the vote that we received the monthly report? All those in favour? Yeah, motion is carried 7-0. Thank you, Lee. We're not waiting. Okay. Right. So we might just adjourn for morning tea, 20-minute break, and we will be back at 10 to 11. good. So we're reconvening the meeting at 10:54 a.m. Thank you, Tara. So the next item on our agenda is 11:11, Sports and Recreation Club grants for September 2023. Moved by Councillor Wright. I'll second that one. So they're up there on the board. Has anyone got any comments or questions? No. So can I put those to the vote that we received those? All those in favour? Motion's carried 7-0. Next we're on to the 11.12, financial support for our junior elite athletes for September. Moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Clifford. They're also up there on the screen. Has anyone got any comments or questions they would like to make? So can I put those to the vote? All of those in favour? Motion's carried 7-0. Next we're going into our item number 12.
Yeah, I have a prescribed conflict of interest on the rates issue.
And
I'm leaving the room.
you're leaving the room?
Yep.
Thank you. So
For
you
that.
for that.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry. Okay, sorry. So we're going to actually move to go into a closed session. So I'll move that. Seconded by Councillor Clifford. So we will close the meeting to the public at 12:56 a.m. Oh, sorry, yep. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion's carried 7-0. So we will be moving into the closed session now, which means we'll be suspending the live stream, and for the purpose of the Local Government Regulation 2012, for discussing the following items and the reason for going into closed session. So we'll be discussing Waterston Way Access Road, short-term accommodation and outstanding rates and charges. Thank you. Okay, so we'll open the meeting and reconvene at 11:52 a.m.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Clifford. Seconded. We don't. Yeah. Just proceed. Yeah.
Well, it was up there, so.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's procedural, so we don't need to second it. All those in favour? Motion's carried 7-0. Okay. So item number 12.1, moved by Councillor Brunker, seconded by Councillor Collins. Any comments or questions? Put that to the vote. All in favour? Motion is carried 7-0. On to 12.2, our short-term accommodation.
Motion.
Councillor Bowman.
I'd like to move a motion that council delegates the CEO to progress settlement in the Planning and Environment Court Appeal Matter 1. We remove 2 and 3.
I'll second.
Councillor Clifford has seconded that. Okay, so I will put that to the vote. All of those in favour?
Speak to that now.
Yeah, speak to it. Yep, you can speak.
I'd just like to speak to it. Yep. So that shown around the table today that we are willing to spend money to protect the amenity of residents. That's what we're here for. What we're asking to do here today is to spend a fraction of that money protecting the, I feel, to protect the amenity of residents within the Whitsundays. I'd appreciate your support.
I've always supported the resolution, whether, again, I've had my own zones, I suppose, where I picked and choose, but and I've always stated that until we get some sort of advice, and I'll be taking the legal advice to say that all three we should remove or support the appeal, to withdraw against the appeal. So this, I believe, is picking winners. And I think we should be supporting the legal advice.
That's all right.
Thank you, through the chair. Just something that you did say, Councillor Bowman, like protecting the amenity. Well, clearly you didn't protect the amenity in Collinsville. I'd just like to clarify that. But yeah, I think we've been given legal advice, and yeah, I'm sticking with the professional advice.
One right on you.
Thank you, that's right. I truly believe, I totally respect the majority around the table, but I truly believe protecting the amenity in Collinsville was to go on with a long-term management plan. That's what I'm only asking people to do here today, is to vote in what they believe in. As you know, I believe there is some variation in the advice given. I think that's worth playing out in the proper place, which is between the experts and the court.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, so can I put that to the vote? All those in favour? All against? Motion's carried 5-2.
Move the original motion, please, Matt.
So the original motion is moved by Councillor Brunker and seconded by Councillor Collins. Anyone got any comments or questions? I'll put that motion to the vote. All in favour? All against? Motion carried. 5. Yes, and Taylor, can you record the division, please? Thank you. You fine with who? 2? Yep. Next on our agenda is 12.3, our outstanding rates and charges. Councillor Clifford.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to declare a prescribed conflict of interest. I have had issues of a personal nature in the past with one of the property owners that is listed for sale. Only one that I will leave the room.
So I'll move a procedural motion. Councillor Jan Clifford is leaving the room for a prescribed conflict of interest. All those in favour? Motion's carried 6-0. Thank you, Taylor, for your time there.
The recommendation.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Brunko has moved the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Simpson. Any questions or comments? That motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried 6-0. Just get Councillor Clifford back in the room. We've had just enough time to walk in and walk out.
Yes.
Okay, so we're up to item number 13, late report items, which we don't have any. And on to item number 14, matters of importance. So would any councillors like to raise any matters of importance today? Councillor Clifford.
It's not really a matter of importance, it's just a matter of if we could look at in the future. I've had a few people, particularly during school holidays when early years chockers, that there's not enough places to sit, particularly in the parks. And if we could sort of look at maybe in future, putting some more seats along the foreshore would be greatly appreciated by the general population. So there's nowhere basically to sit and you know, eat lunch or things like that. So just a note. Just a note.
Okay, and I'm just going to remind councillors that this section does serve for urgent matters only.
Stand up and need you, so it'll be urgent for you too.
We've noted that, Taylor. Thank you. Any other matters of importance? Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda today, so I declare the meeting closed at 11:59 a.m. and thank you everyone for your attendance and to everyone on the live stream as well.